Thank you for attending this Tuesday morning's classroom session from Shortcuts. This is Noah, one of the educators with Shortcuts, and today we're looking at Anywhere Basics. Now, I do apologize for anybody that started attending earlier this morning. We were supposed to start almost an hour ago. Unfortunately, the system that I was using was running Windows updates, and even though I started downloading the updates an hour before the class started, Windows wasn't done until 2 hours later, so I apologize for that. We will send everybody a copy of this recording, so apologies if you missed it. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us and we will get back to you. So today, we're looking at the basics of Anywhere. Now, hopefully, most of you are already familiar with the online console, and it's okay if you're not. What the online console controls are the services that synchronize with Shortcuts. So for example, if you have a salon, a spa, or a barbershop, and you want to allow customers to make appointments online, then you actually configure that portion through the online console. If you're going to give your customers a survey and you'd like to review the surveys and share the surveys on your company page or your Facebook page, you would also do that through the console. So what Anywhere is another one of the services that works through the online console. And specifically, what it allows you to do is give your staff permission so that they can look at their appointments online. So whether they use their phone, their home computer, a tablet, if you give them permission to access Anywhere, then they can use one of those mobile devices to look at appointments and possibly even to make appointments for themselves. So let's look at how to set that up. So this presentation is approximately 30 minutes. Normally we allow time for questions, but I don't think we have any attendees right now. I'm recording about 50 minutes after we were supposed to start. We will be recording. We will share this link with everybody once we're done. And if you have any questions after the fact, go ahead and reach out to us. So you can always reach us on our emails, our 800 number, and even on social media. So if you go to Shortcuts USA on Facebook or even on Instagram, we will get back to you. So today's focus on Anywhere. So how to access those online services, how to access that console. How do you add staff members, employees into Anywhere? How do you know the different permission levels and how to access it? So Anywhere. It allows you access to the appointment book. And in order to use this, you have to go to the online console and create accounts. So if you're the administrator, you should hopefully be familiar with console.shortcutsoftware.com. So to configure it, I would advise setting this up on an actual computer. You don't necessarily want to set up permissions on a mobile device because navigating the mobile version is a little bit different. So if you can, get to your main computer and go to the console page. And to give access for other staff members to access Anywhere, I actually want you to begin with site settings. So when you're in the console, you're going to site settings. The icon, it looks like a little gear. Once you're there, on the right side of the screen, you're going to select Manage Users. And then to give somebody permission to access their appointment book, you're going to press Add a New User. And I will actually give you a live demonstration of how these steps look. So when you're creating access for Anywhere, when you're going to add a new user, you actually have two different options. The first, create a user that is not associated with a point of sale employee. And the second option, create a user that is a point of sale employee. So why do we have two different types? If you have a business partner, and perhaps this business partner should have access to the online console, and they don't necessarily cut hair or perform any services in your location, but they should still have access, that's when you want to choose the first option. So you'll be able to use their email, put in some contact information, and give them access to Anywhere. But for the majority of customers that are using this, you actually always choose the second option. Create a user that is a point of sale employee. Because Shortcuts is going to look at who's currently in your point of sale computer, your actual server computer, and say, okay, of these employees, who do you want to give permission to? So always choose the second option. And then when you have a pull down list, you're going to choose your particular site and your particular employee. Now, if you have multiple locations, you can actually give staff permission from any location during these steps. So the first thing you do, once you choose the particular employee or manager or receptionist you're giving access to, you'll want to make sure you enter their email address. So their email becomes their username that they're going to log in with. Once you create their account, they're actually going to get an email with a random password generated for them. So don't worry about creating a password for them. That'll be automatic. And once you choose their email, at the bottom of the screen, there's going to be what roles or what permissions should they have. So there's different levels of access. Starting from left to right, site manager, CIC access, employee, site manager restricted, and appointment operator. Now, a site manager, a full site manager, has the ability to go into the console just like you as an administrator would. They'd be able to look at customer surveys. They'd be able to respond to customers. They'd be able to change your online booking or your self-check-in settings. They'd be able to give other staff members permission to create accounts or disable accounts. So be very careful about who gets site manager access. Usually that's only you, only one person per location. Now the second option, CIC access, client information card access. If an employee, if a staff member should be able to actually bring up a customer card, look at customer information, their history, their notes, their customer details, that's when you choose CIC access. Most locations usually don't give employees this ability. They only let the staff look up the name of the customer, not their contact details, nothing else. So do consider ignoring this unless you have a receptionist or a team that should have access to client information card level information. For most sites, when they're giving their staff permission to access anywhere, the one permission that they always set is employee level. What employee level does is once the staff member goes to the console, by default, the only thing they'll be able to see is anywhere. They'll only be able to see their own appointment book. That's it. They can't look up necessarily too much customer information, and they cannot look at the appointments for any other staff member, just themselves. So for about 90% of the sites I work with, employee is the default permission that everybody should have. Now the next one to it, site manager restricted. What that would allow the employee to do is to actually look at multiple employees' appointment books. So perhaps you have a receptionist and you're going to give this person permission to jump between the different employees. That's when you would give them site manager restricted access. Restricted means that they do not have the ability to look at customer surveys, to respond to customers, or to change your online booking settings. That's why it's restricted. So usually, employee is the first permission you give your staff. And if these people should be able to make appointments for themselves, that's when they also become appointment operators. So again, about 90% of the sites I work with, they usually give their staff only two permissions, employee and appointment operator. So that if they're working remotely, if they're at the grocery store and they come across one of their customers, and their customer says, by the way, do you have any openings this Saturday? Can you squeeze me in for an appointment? Right away, that employee can bring up anywhere on their phone, look at their openings for Saturday, and make an appointment for that customer. So employee, appointment operator. For the majority of the sites I work with, those are the only two permissions you give the staff. Once you press save, then that employee will actually get an email and it will say This is your username, this is your password, and go ahead and log into Anywhere. So Anywhere is optimized for mobile devices. As soon as they have their username and password, they can log in and start working with their appointment book. So before we do the summary, I'm actually going to show you these same steps so you can see them in real time. So stand by just a moment. And I am going into my browser. So again, you should hopefully be familiar with the console. There's a number of features we have here. And if you've attended previous sessions, you know a little bit about Spotlight, about online booking, because these are things we've covered previously. But if you're going to give your staff permission, you're going to go to Site Settings. And once you're in Site Settings, on the right side of the screen, you're going to go to Manage Users. And this screen usually shows you who currently has permission. But if I'm going to add a new person, I'm going to choose Add a New User, again on the right side. And I have two options, so I always choose the second option. Create a user that's in your point of sale system. And if you had multiple salons or multiple locations, this is where you would choose which one are you going to give permission for. I'll go for the first one. And who's the particular employee that I'm going to give permission for? In this case, I'll say it's going to be for Melissa. So for my first location, Melissa is the one I'm going to give permission to. I'll press continue. So the first thing I need to do is I need to put the email for that employee. So it's always important to get their info. So I'll put in melissa@shortcuts.net. And then I'll give her a last name, Melissa M. And then down at the bottom, this is where I tell Shortcuts what permissions she should have. So she should have employee permission so she can look at her own appointments. And since I want her to be able to make appointments, she also becomes an appointment operator. I am not giving her any other permissions. These are the ones that I would recommend for most locations. If I press the Save button on the top right corner, then Melissa's going to get an email, and then she'll be able to log in with her permissions. So when she uses her phone, or she uses her home computer, whatever it is, when she logs into the console, she does not see all of these buttons that you currently see. These buttons only show up if you're an administrator for the site, if you're a manager for the site. Instead, Shortcuts will automatically log her into the Anywhere tile, her appointment book. So there's no chance that she can accidentally muck around with these buttons. It will always log her into Anywhere. Now, if you're a manager and you just want to look at other people's schedules, their calendars, you can always press the Anywhere button, choose which location you want to look at the appointment book for. So in this case, since I'm an administrator, I get to see Amy, I get to see everybody's appointments. And if I click the little arrow at the top of the screen next to Amy's name, I can actually choose to see a different employee schedule. And just like you would in the Shortcuts point of sale, you can click an opening, search for a customer, and make an appointment for them. So let's go back to our presentation. And believe it or not, that's how easy it is to give your staff permission to access Anywhere. You're going to need an email. You're going to need to choose what level of permission they have. And then once you press save, the employee will be able to access that. So you should now know how to add staff to Anywhere, a little bit between the differences of the permission levels, and how to access Anywhere. So normally we open up the floor for questions, but since we're recording this session a little bit late today, we're going to let you email us a question or just follow up with our other webinars. So go ahead and reach out to us. If you're watching this after the fact and you had a question on Anywhere, so education@shortcuts.net. And of course, you can also reach us on social media. On Facebook, or on Instagram. So go ahead and give us a call. I do apologize for the lateness of today's presentation, but now that these Windows updates are run, I don't anticipate having any problems in the future. Have a great day, everybody, and I hope to see you again soon.